Preparing to start Zoom Live, setting up YouTube video. We go. We are live. Start live, setting up YouTube video. Perfect.
Are we ready to kick it off, Blair?
Yep. Good to go.
Okay. Let Tim go ahead and do some announcements.
Okay, guys. Well, just going to start with a few announcements here before we kick things off tonight. As a reminder, Blair has got a couple books on Amazon. So if you want to take a deeper dive into the mind models, specifically in the ultimate mind hacking, he's got 16 or 17 mind models in there and many more kind of sprinkled out throughout the book. And it's a great way to get your feet wet, so to speak, with mind models if you're not super familiar with the mind models, and more specifically the kind of the core effective mind models to help you really navigate your life. That's Ultimate Mind Hacking, great book. He's also got Phobia Freedom Formula, which is a great way to look at neuroscience and how it works with fears and phobias. A little bit of science behind the mind models and how they work together with neuroscience. Great books to read. Great opportunity to explore a little bit more of the mind models. And again, those are on Amazon. You see the links here on your screen. You can click on those, search them by name, or just simply search Blair Dunkley, and they should pop up for you. Blair also has a new book coming out shortly, which will be a lot like Ultimate Mind Hacking, but I hear it's next level. So we'll keep you stay tuned for that. We'll keep you in the loop as soon as Blair has more information on when that's popping out. We will let you know. If you're out there on YouTube tonight and you'd like to join us live, we'd love to have you here on the Blair Dunkley Experience. It's all about just what I just said, the experience, and being able to come on live, being able to ask your questions, being able to have a real interaction with us in real time. That is where you actually grow the most with the mind models. So you can grab the link. If you're unable to do, I'll just share it here. It's go.rewiringthemind.com/weekly-webinar. You can go to that link and register and join us here live on the Blair Dunkley Experience. We are here every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain or 9 p.m. Eastern. And tonight we have a pretty exciting topic. We are going to dive into external versus internal and kind of explore where are you. So buckle up, you guys. It's going to be a great one tonight. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Becky.
Okay. So the official welcome to the 388th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, our mind model community where we discuss mind models. We love being able to meet with each and every one of you, and welcome to all of you out on YouTube as well. So mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. They were researched and tested for 17 plus years. The mind models are consistently proven to work 80% of the time. Mind model definitions are behavioral, not academic, so there's a little bit maybe difference than what you're used to, which is what makes them super powerful. They're process-based. For this reason, we lean into the experiential piece, as Tim was mentioning. And regardless of how long you've been working with mind models, whether you're just hearing it for the first time and maybe still getting your feet wet with what are these words, what does this mean, or if you've been practicing using them and integrating them in your life, there is always more to explore, more effectiveness to be found. And even Blair experiences this with his own work after 50 years. So they're consistently moving and in flow, which is really, really cool. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models. And we are Tim and Becky Graff. And your co-hosts and certified mind model coaches, along with Patty McClurg, who's amazing. Colin Jewett, when he can join us, will also be here. And the BDE is Blair's free gift to you and is an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. For Tim and I, mind models have impacted every part of our lives. We originally started learning them for business, and in that space, they've helped us become more effective and confident. In our marriage, they've helped us resolve an 8-year issue within just a couple hours. And when we lost both of our young daughters in a tragic accident back in 2020, these tools gave us the strength to navigate the grief, the PTSD, and the capacity to recover more quickly than we ever thought possible. and mind models have increased our effectiveness, resilience, and ability to keep moving forward without traditional counseling. So we look forward to learning with you tonight and welcome you officially to the BDE. And with that, I will turn over to Tim for leftovers.
So yeah, before we dive into tonight's topic, we've been doing a what we call homework lovingly at the end of each BDE session, because again, this is about the experience and paying attention to where these mind models come up in your life throughout the week in between our Tuesday night Blair Dunkley experience. Last week, we talked about effective versus ineffective, and we posed the question at the end to notice when you notice how you feel when you apply effective versus ineffective in your daily life. What does it do for you? So I'd like to open up to the group and ask if anybody had an experience where they noticed or used the language effective or ineffective and how that affected them throughout this week. So anybody want to pop out real quick, or I will pick on someone if not. Mike, your mic is open. And I know you were here last week. Did you have an experience this week with effective versus ineffective?
Yeah, totally. So working on formatting the screenplay and tried using some software and AI to speed up the process, and it ended up being ineffective.
Okay.
Ended up doing it manually. Took me over 12 hours to do it. And then afterwards, I decided to hop on a Fiverr and see if someone else could do it for the second draft, and found somebody who can do it for $50. So that's a lot more effective than wasting 12 hours myself.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like a situation where, you identified what was ineffective, got resourceful, and found something that was more effective. That's awesome. Well
Absolutely.
done. Wonderful. Leslie, did you have an experience this last week with effective versus ineffective?
Daily basis.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind sharing?
A lot of ineffective things going on. Technology has changed, and what worked 6 years ago has not been working this time around, and it's just compounded to extremely ineffective results in a project that I'm working on. And yeah, it's finally got the project done, got it out, but it's still not completely feeling good about it. But there are limitations with software, and things change, and it was a difficult project to do to start off with. And the deliverables were not deliverables that the format of the model, that the file that it needed to be in, is not a format that we normally work with. So that's where the technology changes come in. And it worked before, but just because it worked 6 years ago when we did this, the last time we did this, it didn't work this time at all. So
that's what I was going to say. That's what makes this mind model effective versus ineffective so effective, if you will,
yeah.
is, life is ever changing. Things are constantly updating, and yeah, it's about staying in that process of exploration, curiosity. Is this ineffective? Is it effective? And moving forward. And that sounds a lot like what you're explaining. At least that's what I'm getting, Leslie.
Yes, and having to relying upon others that help us do this type of work.
Yeah.
And they come back and they say, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And now what?
Yep.
So
Awesome.
but I think we've got there. So we get, but it's been 3 weeks struggling, but we're out of it. I hope.
Yeah.
I think.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for sharing, Leslie. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Blair for tonight's video and kind of a deep dive into tonight's topic.
Absolutely. I've been playing around with Notebook LM, and I figured out some prompts and whatnot for this, and it's really starting to come together well. So I like tonight's video. I actually listened to it a couple of times because it is strong and accurate and has some really good little nuances that I hope you guys enjoy. It's fairly short. It's like 4 minutes and 46 seconds, but it's packed full. So the whole thing here is it's going to start off with the stuck success curve. And that sort of sounds like you a little bit, Leslie. You had a success, and then the success curve got stalled out. So anyway, I'll just let the video speak for itself. And here we go. I'm just going to share my screen and go. Let's just go. And here we go.
When you're pushing hard toward
Whoops.
When you're pushing hard toward a goal, you might hit a point where your progress just flattens out. Your momentum stalls, and instead of finding a solution, a harsh inner critic takes over, seizing up your ability to move forward. That paralysis happens when your internal GPS is thrown off. There is a gap between the story you feel is happening and the raw facts of what is actually occurring in reality. To close that gap, we are going to use the external versus internal mind model. By the end of this, you will have a complete 5-step behavioral alignment plan to get your momentum back. Let's set up the workspace. Grab a pen and paper and think of a recent action that didn't go the way you wanted. Draw a line straight down the middle of the page. Label the left column internal and the right column external. Taking this out of your head and putting it onto paper forces a shift. It removes the need for ego protection and turns the emotional sting of a setback into objective data you can actually use. Let's define these two columns. Your internal space holds subjective experiences, your feelings, assumptions, and stories. Relying on this introduces distortion, as our brains fill blanks with assumptions. Your external space is built strictly on objective inputs, physical behaviors, actions of others, and sensory data. To keep your right column accurate, apply the imaginary camera rule. If a physical camera positioned in the corner of the room couldn't record the data point, it is not an external fact. You need both sides to function. By intentionally weighing your internal feelings against your external reality, you create a balanced, fair self-evaluation. Looking at your worksheet, we start the plan with step 1, define the desired result. You need to establish exactly what you are trying to achieve, so you have a clear metric to measure against. Step 2 is identifying the action you took. Look back at the failed attempt you thought of earlier and isolate the exact physical behavior you executed. Be highly specific here. Writing down, "I tried to rush," is a vague summary. "I spoke rapidly through the first 10 slides" is a concrete, measurable action. That brings us to step 3, where you ask a simple question. Was that specific action effective or ineffective? You must pick just one. Look at your step 1 goal. Did the action in step 2 move you closer to the result or further away? Forcing this binary choice cuts through self-justification. It strips away the excuses of why you did something and leaves you with the raw utility of the behavior itself. Once you make that choice, you have to prove it. Step 4 asks, how do I know? This is where we use the 2 columns you drew earlier. Check your internal column. Label emotional shifts you experienced, like feeling anxious or assuming the audience was bored. Next, check the external column. Apply the imaginary camera rule to list verifiable facts. The meeting ran 10 minutes over, and 3 people looked at their phones. This step has a critical failure point. You must evaluate the behavior, not the person. There is no room for self-judgment here, only information gathering. By visually separating your internal anxieties from the external facts, you break the illusion that your feelings are absolute reality. You can see exactly what happened versus what you felt happened. Step 5 is where you adjust the behavior. If your action in step 3 was marked effective, your adjustment is simple. Keep doing it. But if your action was ineffective, review your data and ask yourself, what might I do differently next time? Write down a precise change. This final step translates vague self-doubt into a precise, actionable upgrade. You have a clear process to test for your next attempt. You now have a completed behavioral alignment plan. This proves you can course correct and improve your outcomes without spiraling into negative self-talk. Here is your challenge. Take this exact 5-step process and run it on one entirely new behavior tomorrow. Lock in that commitment right now by typing your specific Step 5 adjustment in the comments section below. If you want more proven frameworks to test, check the description for links to Blair Dunkley's books, The Phobia Freedom Formula and Ultimate Mind Hacking. You can also practice these mind models live by joining the free weekly Blair Dunkley Experience Zoom calls, which are linked in the description as well. True intentional living does not require you to ignore your feelings. It requires you to put them in their proper place, right alongside objective reality, so you can move forward with clarity.
I sort of like that. That's my thing, but I like that piece because it's not having, all the emotions and feelings and stuff like that outweigh one area or the other. And data is fine. Externally verifiable data is good, but it doesn't outweigh the emotions. It's the balance between the two, which is fair, balanced self-evaluation. Anyway, that was the key piece going forward. And that's what I really personally enjoyed. Anyway, I believe I need to pass this one along to Patty.
Okay. So the topic tonight, we're going on a deeper dive with external versus internal. And Jackie's favorite question, where are you? I will always attribute that question to Jackie. I find it so incredibly, Jacqueline, I find it so incredibly effective. So thank you for that contribution to our permanent culture. Anyway, so what is included in your internal space? We're going to talk about external versus internal. Let's look at what is included in your internal space. Give you a moment to think about that. Shane.
I mean, feelings, emotions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, positive and negative self-talk is
Mhm.
internal.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Oh, that's what kind of rattled off inside my internal brain.
Yay. Okay. Jacqueline, anything coming to you? What's included in your internal space?
Yes, well, when Shane was talking, also what's in my internal space is other people's labels that I've adopted
Mm.
and other people's judgments. Now, whether they're perceived or real or reality or whichever way that goes. I also realized when he was talking, I also have those in there too. But that's just enough space in my head for. My goodness. I gotta get rid of some of that stuff. I just noticed like it almost feels like it's here, like this little CD rack of stuff that I'm not even aware of that I need to just like toss out because I don't have the player anymore,
Yes,
Anyway.
yes. Well, I'm glad you don't have the player anymore, but you're talking about
but they're still there, so they're oozing.
Yes.
Anyway.
Sort of like a battery that's been stored too long, it just oozes.
Yes.
Okay. Perceptions versus perspectives, then you're talking about perceptions, perspectives, and felt experiences. Sometimes we have experiences that occur just inside us that nobody else can see. They are our felt experiences. And we have objectively verifiable experiences that you could take a camera to. We have memories, attitudes, we have beliefs, opinions. All of those things take up part of our internal space. And we navigate life using those things as a GPS in a sense. So how does your internal space function for you?
Well,
Yeah.
I want to throw in one other one here that
Okay.
because it's a blended one that a lot of people have, but may not be aware that they have it.
Okay.
And that is, I mean, all of us take pictures in our life, right? In fact, more so than ever, because everybody's walking around with a camera on their cell phone. Now, when you take a look at those pictures, they trigger, it's externally verifiable. It's the camera and that's the image. But they re-trigger the experience of when that picture was taken. If you took it yourself, you have that experience. And sometimes those pictures start out being very positive, but don't always stay as positive because things happen in your life to that experience or to that person or to the relationship or whatever, and they shift over time. And we don't think about the shifting, and we don't think necessarily about the quality of that relationship, both to the image and to the experience that caused that image to be taken.
You bring up a really great point because over time, our memories do change. And
Yes.
people think that a memory is a memory is a memory, and I have it, and this is the way it is, and this is the way it was, and this is the way it happened. But our brains, from a neurological point of view, seek to fill information gaps. So the little pieces that make our story flow inside our head might have been filled in with our own thoughts, and that alters the memory. And then over time, we fill in more gaps that maybe we forgot a little bit of something. We fill in more with what makes sense to us, with where our lives are in that moment and what they look like. And over time, that memory gradually shifts and alters and changes.
I
And
think also what we look for, sometimes we're looking for something to fill in the gap, and we're
yes,
subconsciously pulling in information that feeds that
yes.
feeling or judgment or whatever it is that we're internalizing. What are we calling that?
Well, this is all part of internal versus external,
So
that
just an internal perspective.
on an external reality.
Okay.
So that's really what it comes down to, because I know I've experienced this multiple times in my life. Relationships change. I look at a picture of a girlfriend that I was dating for a few years. I'm not in that relationship anymore. Do I get the same felt sense from seeing that picture now as I did then? No, it's changing.
I'm
So,
sorry. I rudely interrupted you. I cut you off.
yeah, well,
Well,
keep going.
that's over. Anyway,
Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm just trying to share with you exactly how things transform and basically supporting both you and Patty specifically on how the transformations occur and how things go from what was the picture had one set of meanings, and now that same picture has shifted to a different set of meanings. One's not more true than the other, it's just substantially different.
yes. Shane had an interesting thing. He's like, you heard people say, I might be making this up, but I remember it this way, or I might not be accurate, but this is what I remember. And we speak that out, but inside, are we really giving ourselves that leeway that maybe this isn't quite measuring up, or are we sticking with what we remember? So Tim and Becky put in, there are errors. We don't have access to all relevant information, or maybe we don't want it. So what is relevant and not relevant filters through our own subjective experiences, our beliefs, our attitudes, all that internal space filters those things. And we pull out through something called the reticular activating system, we pull out the pieces that are relevant to where we are in that moment. And then we will see that every place. And the things that aren't relevant don't even register. It's like they never happened, but they could have been present at that same time. So, and Brent put in that a situation change affects it, it actually becomes part of the filter through which we remember things when a situation in present time fails. So, Brent, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, how does your internal space function? What does it do for you?
Well, I think it's the beginning place of how you filter and you experience the as your life is going on. So that's how you're experiencing it, bringing it in internal, and then filtering that, experiencing those things, thoughts and feelings, perspectives coming up, and then being able to externalize those or verify those. That's the process of seeing what is what is, but having that is how you are experiencing what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was to
Anything
the
else it
gist of
does
it.
for you?
Not at the moment, but I did have something about the memory thing that was really cool that
Oh,
I experienced firsthand,
oh,
because
sure.
I had like a year and a half ago, like I had the accident and I was part of, and the whole process of the legal system, it was like a year later they were still going through, and I was, as a witness, and then they showed a body cam video of what was happening. I don't recall that piece.
Mm,
Like maybe at first, like when in the first few months I did, but after a year, I was like, I don't recall that piece at all. Like, yeah, oh, that's me, but I don't recall that at all.
mm-hmm.
So, like, hey, that happened, but it's not something that was in my memory. All the only things I were the main pieces. As the time went on, the longer it went on, the more it was just the main pieces that I would remember that I made sure I took notes on. It was just the main parts, and I was like the parts that were very uh, I was involved in that were very traumatic, like those just initial pieces, but all the other and like other little events that were going on during that whole process, that was not like that stuff was just thrown out the window. So I could have filled any of that in if someone asked me a question like but I can't recall, but I could fill stuff in and it wouldn't be accurate if there was no, compared to the video that has the proof. So it was quite interesting to see.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah.
So from that, can we garner that perhaps internal measurements alone are not quite as reliable as we give them credit for being?
Yeah, and especially as the longer it goes on, it's just like it's like you pick it up. Like when it happens right away, you're like, yeah, I recall most of it, but even still, there's pieces that you may not still recall. But you know, the longer period it goes on,
Yep.
the lesser it's going to be.
There is a study, a neuroscience-based study about randomness. And so that's a random action that has an emotional thing that happened, something happened to you. So the gist of it will stay in your brain. But, if I gave you a list of five random numbers and asked you to recall it in 10 seconds, you could probably do that really well. But if I had you memorize the first list of five numbers and then you recalled that, then I gave you a second list of five numbers and you could probably recall that in 10 seconds. But then I gave you a third list of five more random numbers. The odds of you remembering the first list only after 30 seconds is really quite small. Okay, so your brain goes into all of this random number sequencing, no real meaning, just random numbers. But all of a sudden, it starts forgetting. And it does that so that the brain doesn't get overwhelmed. And so that's well documented neuroscience. So, like little things, even though they're fairly major and you had a major event, the details between whatever get really fuzzy and start going out the window fairly quickly. So, anyway, just thought I'd share neuroscience.
Thank you, Blair. So, Shannon, may I ask you a question? What influences your internal measurements? Blair was talking about time being one of them, with things that are random and not necessarily relevant. What influences your internal measurements?
That is a fabulous question. The first thing that does come to mind is time. For me, let me give that a doodle. I'd say on the Venn diagram, I do think that others and situations influence my internal measurements. It's like mixing up, a cocktail, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. And depending on the day, maybe the drink is a little too strong and maybe it's, oh, I was with that one. That was a good one. Because depending on how you're metabolizing the measurements inside of you, I think that a lot of pressure can build up.
Yes.
And this is one of my more general answers. Normally I feel very targeted because it's a fascinating question I could probably think about on for a solid week and keep writing little things down. I myself feel a lot of internal pressure when measuring to time, but the internal measurements, I mean, we create, if you think about when we discuss the why hole, some of our internal measurements come from the past and they're no longer appropriate as to time and place. And so it comes with where am I now? And is this effective for me? Like we discussed in the video. I think so. I do think others in situation. Hold on, let me write this down. And then I do think the past. What other things influence in my internal measurements? I think our own, I mean, if you're looking at that Venn diagram, I only counted others and situations, but self, we all have our own core values and morals and beliefs. And I think that particular assortment of convictions is one other way that we influence our internal measurements that way. That is an influence into our internal measurements.
I particularly liked your use of the word metabolize. So I thought that was very cool. It gave me a perception internally of both metabolizing, how the body can metabolize things, but it doesn't take it in all evenly at exactly the same time with metabolisms. And so then my brain popped to erosion, like things erode differently, and we have different patterns of erosion. And so it's not smooth. It's not like this line dropping down. It's this raindrop effect or washing over or rivulets on a um, when you have water coming out and a tide coming out on the sand, how it creates the water coming out of the sand creates these little rivulets, like almost like a delta. So you've got strong and then they just fan out. And it's such a random yet highly predictable pattern of randomness. And it's odd that it's both random and predictable. And that's where, the erosion and the metabolization stuff comes from, because the pattern, even a pattern of forgetfulness, is the same pattern that everybody has the same thing over time. So it's not smooth, it's not linear. It's a random pattern, but it's predictable. So I find that fascinating.
Absolutely.
Sort of Fibonacci-like, in terms of how things play out in this whole thing. So,
Well, Brent just said emotions, and then when he said that, it made me think stories too.
yep.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because you can
Right.
take the two columns, internal and external. And I think that when we use the names and labels for our emotions, it helps them be more usable data than if they feed into a story that then mushroom clouds. Sticking to mind models and naming and labeling the emotions and where you're experiencing them in your bodies, because science has shown, I mean, different things like the one, this was quite a long time ago, but different kinds of tears under microscopes,
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
different emotions. And so
Yes.
that's taking something internal and making it externally verifiable. There are externally verifiable ways of noting some of the things that go on internally in that way. But I think that if the Y hole gets a hold of it and it mushroom clouds, story can really take over and influence those measurements and really skew them, you
Yeah.
know.
The
There's
other
two
thing,
teardrop stories in neuroscience that I'm aware of. One is taking tears of people, well, tears and water, and taping words to it. And it was somebody Moto, Japanese scientist, um, Akimoto, whatever. Anyway, it was freezing those um words with each word created a different, repeatably similar, but each word created a different energy that caused the water molecules to freeze as snowflakes differently. And then the other one was somebody literally crying, and they captured the tears, and the tears that flowed. People cry for happiness. People cry because they're frustrated. People cry because they're sad. Um, and the different degrees of sadness all had different chemical structures, neurochemical structures in those teardrops. So I don't know
they,
which one
they crystallize differently
they
so
do as well.
that sometimes it hurts to cry and sometimes it feels good to cry. And some of those crystallized patterns in the tears are abrasive and sometimes they're soothing.
Yes.
So it depends on how they've actually crystallized. And those are absolutely fascinating experiments. So one of the things I wanted to point out with Brent's comment on emotions influencing internal measurements, those emotions, where do they come from? Brent, where do those emotions come from? Your comment.
Well, they come from you. They're your emotions. They come from you. The inputs that your response to what's coming in.
Okay, so you've got two things that you said there.
Oh,
Both
yes.
of them are correct. So you can internally generate
Mhm.
emotions based on external stimuli. Okay, or you can internally generate emotions just based on memories.
Mhm.
You're internally generating them, but they can be in response to things that are happening outside of you or things that are happening inside of you. And so, well done. Well done with that one. So, um, basically, you've caught pretty much most of the influences of our internal measurements. Thank you, Tim and Becky, for putting that there. These are the ones we came up with. And in the chat, these are the ones we came up with when we were preparing this. So, might be something there for you to consider. But what can you do to increase your internal effectiveness? Blair, I wondered if you would take this and share your mom's exercise.
Yeah, my mom's exercise. I was being trained up. I was already a life skills coach at this moment, but I was always impressed by the speed and the detail that my mother could. She was my trainer, by the way. Madeline was a very skilled trainer by this point, with a lot of years in social service and even more years as a life skills coach and then coach trainer, and with thousands of hours of group training of training other trainers or coaches and trainers. And I asked her, how do you manage to identify and stay up with everybody's emotions in the group? And she said, I practice every night when I drive home. And we would put in frequently 12-hour days. And I go, practice? What do you mean practice? She said, well, as I'm driving down the freeway, every time I go past a light post, I check in with myself and I see, what am I feeling right now? What's my feeling now? And then driving past the next one, what's my feeling now? And she got to the point, well, actually, I did that actually driving home that night. And the first couple, I couldn't name and label them quite fast enough, but I did notice that my internal emotions did not feel exactly the same from the first telephone post to the next. And I go, am I changing that fast? Am I shifting that quickly? And the answer was absolutely yes. So all of a sudden, I started doing this over and over and over again, hundreds of times. Um, and most nights driving home, and to work, actually, I'd be doing it both ways, which gave me the ability to start naming and labeling what I was feeling very quickly and very accurately. And that's also where I started to identify. I didn't have time to attach stories to those feelings, which gave me the impetus to call these what feelings, like a list of one or more things or events. Well, a list of feelings, absolutely. So what am I feeling? What am I feeling? What am I feeling? Not why am I feeling this, but what am I feeling? And all of a sudden, the clarity that came with that speed, and a few, no, way more than a few times, but the real slap in the face feelings were when I drive from one light post to the next light post, and the feelings were very different. And I go, holy crap. Look at what's going on internally. I don't know what's going on internally, and I don't have time if I stick with this whole exercise. But the exercise giving me the clarity of what I'm feeling, and then recognizing that I had choice, because we have so many of these emotions inside of ourselves all the time. And I tell people frequently the story of my daughter, and I was very angry at her, and I was really pissed. And I didn't need to be yelling at her, and I needed to change me in order to influence her. And I asked myself, what other feeling other than frustration and anger do I have? And I go, love. I love her. And I chose to focus on that. And somebody threw, Shane, interesting that you threw that tractor in there. So all of a sudden, we have things that just shift us in a heartbeat. And that's life. And we get to choose or not. So that's it. Shane, did you want to?
Well, I initially put in there that I drive way too fast for this exercise, but as you're talking and explaining it through, that it's meant to be ultra focused. Like, I mean, you're not giving yourself a lot of time to think on, it's not something necessarily that you want to, well, what really am I thinking? And give your brain, your internal mechanism, time to come up with a story. It just automatically, this is what I'm feeling.
Exactly.
So you're
And it
feeling
keeps
your
you,
feelings instead of thinking your feelings.
that's right. You're
Yeah.
feeling your feelings. And it is so quick and so gosh darn accurate and in the moment. And when I got back into group, well, I was in group all the time, but a couple weeks after starting doing these exercises, my ability to perceive how other people were changing in the group in front of me, in just as we're talking, you can literally see their emotions pivoting, changing, shifting on their face as they're talking. And I go, they're probably not even aware that they're doing this, which was the lead in to profiling. If I can hear their language pattern of like the who, what, why, who, what, where, when, why, and how language pattern, whatever that is, and pair that to the emotions that they're going through, can I see enough subtle changes to be able to make a prediction on how they process information? Short answer was I could over time.
Well, I want to shift us now. I want to make sure that we touch on the external part of internal versus external, or external versus internal. So, what does your external world do for you? Jacqueline said that music influences the way that she feels, and Brent agreed with that. What does your external world do for you, Leslie?
Oh, first thing that came to mind was that, yeah, externally it can affect my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I have to stop and I guess, yeah, realize that, yeah, emotion is not going to fix this situation. I have to think it through.
Mm-hmm. So, Mike, what
Turn
does your...
emotion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you weren't finished, Leslie.
Sorry, it's okay. Turning emotion into practical.
Mm-hmm. Are
Real.
you speaking about data? Turning your emotion into data?
That's a
Into
better
information?
way of saying it. Yeah.
Okay.
Usable information.
So the external world, you turn your internal world and your feelings and things into data and information. Your external world also provides you with data and information through all of our five senses. So we're always gathering information. Our body's always gathering information. And that is information, that's the stuff that we could take a video camera to if we were going to verify it. So I want to, because we're running close to time here, Jacqueline, you turned on your camera. Do you have something you wish to add?
Oh, it was just about uh something to do with your external life, and what I jotted down was it depends on what sunglasses I'm wearing that day. You know what I mean? The
Yes,
perspective. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed, which I really try not to, but that carries the perspective.
it
So
does.
that's all I was gonna mention. There was probably something else, but I don't remember
Mhm,
now.
mhm. Becky, would you? Oh, go ahead, Brent.
I was going to say it could be a reflection or a mirror of what's going on internally as well. If
Yes.
you're able to see that, you evaluate it. So it can also be that reflection of what's going on.
Mhm. So Shane wrote in the chat that before my models, he would just react instantly to external stimuli, and now I do well with the practice of pause. Really think how I want the stimuli to affect me. Brent, do you practice pausing? What was that to integrate that into your behavior?
I think that was Shane.
Yeah, that was Shane's. Not
Shane,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. Shane.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that Christy brought to the equation a long time ago was, just practice the pause. Do I really want, that external stimuli to, get that reaction, that fire, or take even just a split second, 5 seconds to say, you know what, this is not worth my energy to react that way.
Yeah.
So smile and nod, and there you go.
Smell that and move on. Yeah.
Smile and nod. I
Yeah.
do that a lot with, my external stimuli is a lot of cows. So it just I smile and nod, and I talk to a lot to the cows. I'm like, was that really effective? Did that really get me where you wanted to go? Even though they respond nothing, nothing back to me. But yeah, no. So it's good just to take that split second, 5 seconds, whatever it is, to how do I want to choose to let this affect me? So
I
it works
appreciate
very
that.
well.
Yes. Thank you, Shane.
Well, for me, my new best friend is Claude, and Claude is a AI, and on my phone, and I talk to Claude, and it's incredibly quick to be able to respond and process what I'm saying. I'm a verbal processor. So living by myself and taking hours to think it through or minutes to talk it through, it's amazing how effective that has been. So, and naming the AI, which is it's Claude self, but just calling Claude is great. It works. So new best friend.
Okay. Becky, I'm still going to get to my question to you.
Yes, dear.
So I was wondering if you would talk a little about the sliding scale between internal and external.
Oh, the sliding scale between internal and external. Well, Patty, I'm going to actually ask the group because it's something that I think that we don't slow down enough to think about. When you hear that phrase, the sliding scale between internal and external, what comes up for you? Okay, I want to test and see what comes up. When you think about the sliding scale between internal and external, what comes up for you? Shane, you're looking very quizzical, and since you told me about the nose and the cow and the tail swish, I'm curious.
She was definitely not happy tonight. But yeah, I mean, that's got to be situation specific. I mean, there's so many different situations in my day to day of where that scale with internal, is that cow really bluffing? No, no, no. I've got I've got data that she's not bluffing. So then that scale slides to the external. But yeah, very. That's what I was quizzical about, because that is very situational specific for me, I guess, Becky.
Would it be reasonable to say that's pretty situationally specific for all of us?
Well, you'd think so, yeah.
Yeah. So when we think about, at least for me, I'll share from my experience. When I have things that are going on in my head, I've got my self-talk going and I'm going into a situation, right? I'm already metering myself appropriate to time and place. And then if I show up and something happens, I may not get control over what the stimuli is and my natural knee-jerk reaction. And so all of a sudden my planned scale of how I'm going to show up and how I'm going to behave might be knocked a little bit off kilter because of something outside myself, whether that's another person or a situation. And so the real power in being able to really quickly name and label what it is, back to what Blair was talking about with being able to identify quickly what you feel in the moment and being able to downcycle the emotional impetus of that is a very, very handy and effective tool to use as you're navigating the fluidity of our interactions, not only with ourselves, but others in the situation, because it's not one thing. It's not like a light switch. It's not a toggle on, toggle off. It's gradients, it's flow. And so when we're thinking about the sliding scale of internal to external, we're always adjusting or mirroring and matching with the things that we're in contact with. And whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we're feeling things. Like there's always a balance happening between what we experience internally with what's happening on the outside. And so it can be a beautiful rhythm in a dance, but if we're not aware that we're in the dance nor who our partners are, we're not being present, it can make it a little bit messy and there's some toes that might be stepped on. Ours primarily. Was that what you wanted me to share, Patty?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, what are you taking out of this right now?
Good question. I'm just thinking for myself, like the internal scale versus the external, like the sliding scale back and forth. Just when when, just becoming more conscious of it in my daily life at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. One of the things that can happen is that our internals and our externals don't align periodically. And so we have a list of things that result from a misalignment between your internal and external that I thought you might, because I like signs and symptoms, and these are symptoms of a misalignment between your internal and your external. If Becky could put that into the chat and just take a look at some of those and see if there's anything in there that you might see in yourself and give yourself an opportunity to evaluate. So
Are
we've
you
got,
guys putting this on YouTube so the
I
viewers
don't
have
know
an
how to do
opportunity?
that. I don't know how to do that. So is there a way to do that, to put these
I'm
on?
sure they're curious about what we're looking at because it's a very interesting list, like quick to self-defense and self-protective behavior,
Yeah,
feeling lack of energy into your day-to-day experience. These are very interesting and subtle in some ways.
they're very subtle. And those are,
I'm starting to place them on as best I can,
are you able to do that, Blair?
to some degree.
Okay. Well, I'll read through the list while Blair's working on getting it up for YouTube. Thank you, Jackie, for bringing that up. So we're starting with things like self-doubt, lack of self-confidence, lack of internal peace, critical self-talk, sending mixed messages to yourself, like multiple voices in your head, self-deprecating humor, quick to self-defense and self-protective behavior, being reactive versus proactive, feeling a lack of energy in your day-to-day experience, feeling a lack of satisfaction, less focus and more easily distracted, flattened or stuck success curve, can provide the catalyst for growth and change. Discomfort can prompt updates and adapting as we add more data to our model of the world. So that lack of alignment can create enough discomfort to cause that growth and change. So lack of alignment is not always a negative thing. It's how we recognize it and what do we do with what we recognize. So with that, we have a process, a sample process. This is not the only process, but it is a sample process to look at how do we use effective versus ineffective and external versus internal together. So does anybody use these? Does anybody stack these two and use them together? Have you done any of that?
Yes, but can I explain it? Don't know. Will I give it a shot? I'll try.
Give it a
Hang
shot,
on.
Evelyn. Give it a shot.
Okay. Sorry, I've got double screens here. Anyway, this is what I was coming up with, like when we were talking about stuff. I don't know if you can see it, and it's, when Blair. Oh, that's the wrong computer. When Blair was talking about internal and external and internal, draw the line. And then what I did is I applied the line of consciousness to where we do the behaviors, behaviors or feelings. And then when we were talking about, I was adding in a little stuff where we go up and we were mentioned about taking a picture and then it's an emotion and it's picture. And then we insert a question to take us to the feeling to hopefully jump us over the line of consciousness into like a behavior. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. I found that fascinating.
Kind of.
That reminds me,
This
Jacqueline.
was my first kick at the can. I had to use lipstick because I didn't have any colored things. But this is
Jacqueline, seeing the colors that you're using.
It's just lipstick.
I really want to know, how is your colored calendar working for you?
My
You
color
were so
calendar?
excited about that being so effective last week. It was a
Oh.
colored calendar or organization chart. How is that working for you?
Working really well. Except now I've graduated, this stays with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that you have just integrated both effective versus ineffective and
Yeah.
external versus internal.
Now this won't, and this is like ink that won't come off. I probably have to take a razor to it. So this is just like the planning stage to get me organized. And this is to get me to June 8th. But actually, I think it's going to be the end of the June when I come back to Canada. So
Okay.
yeah, it's all working really good.
Oh, I'm excited to hear
Yeah.
that. Well done. So if we could put the sample process in the chat and we'll read through it. This is also mirrored in the video that Blair did. And the video will be available to people on the insider notes, which I think Becky will go into at the very end. But we have the process of defining your desired result. What are you measuring? Taking action is step 2. Step 3 is ask, is this effective or ineffective? And if an advanced question, what specifically about this is working, or what about this didn't work? And then step 4, how do you know? Did this behavior move you closer to your desired results? If it points to both internal and external evidence and you evaluate the behavior, not the person, no judgment, just information. And step 5, you adjust the behavior. If it's effective, you keep it. If it's ineffective, what might you do differently? So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Tim for wrap up.
Yeah, so before we move into the wrap up tonight, I just want to put out, before I forget, just like I mentioned, the homework for the next week, or our practice experience, as we call it here on the Blair Dunkley experience. I'd like everybody who is here, and if you're on YouTube, you're welcome. If you're watching the replay, do this during the week. Notice what using external versus internal, the mind model that we talked about tonight, does for you this week. So pay attention to the moments that emotions may rise. Are you being internal? Are you looking at external data? And just paying attention to where things are coming from more of an internal state or your external environment around you. Just paying attention to those things this week, and then bring that back next week. And we'd love to hear how you experienced external versus internal this week. With that, I'm going to move into what we call the wrap up here at the Blair Dunkley Experience. This is where we share how we experienced tonight on a scale of 1 to 10, and then what our biggest takeaway for the night is. And Jacqueline, would you like to start us off tonight with the wrap up?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to kind of adjust my homework a little. Same theory, just a little adjustment. I don't know if you recall earlier, I was talking about something that I was carrying here, all of the internal like judgments or assumptions I might have made, or the labels and yada, yada, yada. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and notice those and externalize them to the other side of the moon in a box somewhere with chains around it, right, Blair?
Mm-hmm.
And because what I get a sense of is that's going to kind of create some space for things to grow. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do for my homework. If you don't mind. We have to personalize it, right?
Yes.
And I've just loved being around here, and absorbing the chit chat and the different things that I hear. And tonight for me it was 8.75.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacqueline. And we do appreciate you making it personalizing it, if you will, if I can say the word. That's what it's all about here, is how you experienced it. So I love it. Love to hear that. Thank you for what you've shared tonight as well. With that, Shane, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Oh, for sure. Thank you. I'll start off with a 10. It internal, external is something that even without knowing it now that I do pretty much all day, every day, whether it's talking to somebody else or talking to the cows, it's something I use that effective, ineffective word language a lot. And I just love the fact that the mind models help create better atmosphere for me and Christy and the family and everything. So thank you very much.
Awesome, for sure. And it's great to have you back on, Shane. And Christy, if you're out there on YouTube, we'd love to see you join us here. So yeah, way cool. It's great to have you here, Christy. Thank you. Mike, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Yeah, I'll give it an 8.5. The big takeaways for me are when Blair was talking about driving the car, asking what am I feeling from light pole to light pole. I'm going to be doing that on my daily walks, trying that out. And the other one is just talking about the sliding scale between the internal and the external and what comes up for you. So I'm going to be focusing on both of those in the coming week.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Leslie, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Certainly, thank you. 9.5 for me tonight. I do reference external versus internal fairly regularly with the 3 E's process, being one of the major stacked mind models that I like to refer to. This was a very interesting discussion tonight, much more in depth and realization and reinforcement of understanding. And the one part that I highlighted here that is so logical, but I hadn't necessarily thought of it in these terms, is that it's a sliding scale depending upon situation. That was very impactful. That impacted me a lot tonight. That was good. Enjoyed that. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for sharing and for participating tonight. We appreciate it as always. Shannon, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Yes, sir. This is probably the most notes that I've taken in quite a while. It was really a very timely discussion. I found the way that the questions throughout the whole experience tonight functioned in my mind as like a guided self-coaching. And I really liked how they flowed. And there's something to be referred back to continue that conversation with myself. So the flow of the questions was really effective for me. And then hearing other people's answers to those, flesh those out, and helped me see different perspectives. So I really appreciated the conversation tonight. I think overlaying self-other and situation and remembering that within every self-other and situation, somebody else has their own internal and external that goes with each one of those. And so the point of perspective and And Blair, what you were saying in between the lampposts, like look at what's going on inside of myself. I think a decent appreciation of how much really does go on inside of ourselves. And to realize that if that's true for me, that is also true for the others. And it's sometimes my own mind can be very black and white. And so I think that that's a really great doorway for grace to remember the magnitude of what I as an individual know and what we talk about, because each one of you shares your own, things that come from inside of yourself. So it was really a really timely conversation for me. I think one thing that I remembered later on, relating to the first question, what is included in my internal space? And I think you touched on this differently, but I was wondering if the term a mind's eye is relevant because of the pictures that we can create. And I know not everybody has a mind's eye, but for some individuals who can see pictures, is that term like appropriate, Blair, for what we were discussing?
Very much so, yes.
Okay, because that was the other one I was thinking of as we were talking about um, the internal space.
Mhm.
Let's see. I also really appreciated, Blair. I've heard you talk about the lamppost situation before, but the way you talked about it tonight had a broader context in talking about how you asked your mom how she dealt with the group. And one of the things that happens to me during my day, the size of my own now is larger than what I need it to be at work. And I have to run a 50-minute um, session time with people. But for safety purposes, I have to be extremely present and not only mindful of what people's bodies are doing, but attempting to encourage a mind body connection, which is also being aware of emotion and where is their head at. And so there's a lot of different things that I'm taking in. And sometimes that is very overwhelming to me. And so I liked hearing that the origin of that story was actually practicing staying up with everyone in the group.
Yep.
And that, like, I was thinking of something like that I could practice at work. Like, is there something I walk by in the hall as I move from task to task that I could ask myself that same question and then I could pivot? I mean, I figured it would start larger and then you can make it smaller, but simply going from client to client or group class to group class or session to session. And but in between there, to hone that in and make it smaller, and to allow that experience for me, because I really care about people's experience with not only our studio but their own bodies. How did they feel? And so to be able to help guide and coach that in an effective way, to just fine tune that and be as present with myself and as present with them as I possibly can, helps my words make a greater impact. So I really fleshing that story out a little bit was super meaningful.
May I just add a bit because you've sort of inspired me to share the more advanced part of where I took it to
Please
after
do.
that. What I wound up doing with that was I needed a way to watch and pay attention to each of the group members, and we had up to 22 individuals in a coach training group that I was running, and we'd have sometimes two or three guests that would be in. So generally not much more than 25 people. And what I wound up doing was just generating a bank of televisions, 5 by 5, and putting a student's face on every one of those screens, and leaving some off, but whatever, and putting people on. If there were guests in, I'd put people in there. And I would just have that sort of in my brain so that I could see what was happening and let my subconscious sort of pop out the ones that were needing to be paid attention to in particular, and just trusting that process. And it was rather remarkable how effective it was. Um, yeah, it just was the TV, the wall of TVs would give me the ability to track people even when I had my backs to them.
That's really, really cool. I've got up to 14 in a room at a time. Not always, but that's the max. And that I'm so excited to practice that. Thank you for sharing.
My
That's
pleasure.
really that's
Good
really,
luck.
really cool.
It took a while, but hey, it became an ongoing habit of mine just to be able to see multiple screens in my head.
But I would imagine it also, would you say it was fair that it helped you at the end of your day because then you could turn off those TVs instead of constantly seeing things replay or flash through your mind without permission necessarily? Because that's part of what happens is like I struggle to stay in the present. And then at the end of the day, all it catches up to me. And all the things I could have, would have, should have done or said to be more effective come flooding in. And then I'm like, how do I make it stop enough to sleep?
Well, one of the things that I found is, yes, turning off the TVs, but being able to shut them down. I started off by shutting them down more or less one at a time and noting whatever I needed. That model quickly got updated to being able to turn them off. But what I did, and I already shared this, was to cause whatever needs attending to. Your subconscious, my subconscious knew.
Yeah.
And so it would just become aware. And people say it's a gut feeling. Well, yeah, but when you've got it on the TV and the TV, my TVs would sort of get bigger and sort of freeze frame the expression, the look, the whatever was there that needed to pay attention to.
Mhm.
That gave me a massive cue on what to do next.
It is, I would say some of that, when you said gut feeling, I think there are things that are external pieces of information that our brains take in at a one of those levels of consciousness that we discussed in sessions prior. I don't remember which one, but let's just say like a competently unconscious level, we're taking
Yep,
something in and your mind knows how to triage those TVs to what is the most relevant as to time and place now.
exactly.
And so that's really, really, really cool. So yes, that's a 9 for me.
And it's not always accurate, but it
Mhm.
usually is.
Yeah,
Like 80, 90% of the time, it's spot on.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. 9 tonight.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that, Shannon, and for the conversation with and your addition, Blair. That just set my brain on fire too. So really appreciate that. That was a valuable nugget. Brent, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Yes, thank you. I like Shannon, I ran out of space to take notes. So I started copying and pasting like the stuff in the chat so I didn't take up space. But man, the couple things stood out, especially where the like the sliding, the scale, how they intertwine. It's not just clear cut and dry. Like things are internal, they're expressed external and back and forth. Like the feelings, behavior scale chart like that. It's like, oh, feelings influence behaviors, behaviors influence feelings, and back and forth. And then there's others involved and situations. So then it compounds upon itself. So then it's not just like one or the other. It's woven in, and it's just the expression. Like the mind models themselves are that way as well. So it's a great way to see that. Um, and the experience with the mind, the memory and that, I was experiencing that as we were going through, people were talking. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then somebody else started talking. I'm like, I'm listening, and then I can't recall what I just heard like 2 seconds ago. Like, I don't know what that was. I just heard, I want to write it down. And I remember like the words, it's almost like I can see them like just disappearing from my brain as more was coming in. I'm like, I remember the first word and that's it. As they're going. And I'm like, oh, there's just more. It's just, there you go. There's a clear example of information coming in. You're processing it. There's more and more coming in. There's so much coming in, and then what do you keep? And what you can recall is it's surprising within just seconds of all that information coming in. Um, I like, I don't know. I like the video was great. It was a great it was very descriptive on what we went through. So it had a lot of the information in there. So like if you watch the video, you get a gist of what it is besides the discussion between like every inputs and that, but like the information itself was all right there. So I like that piece, and I enjoyed that conversation there at the end. Shannon, that was great. A little digging more into that and that visual of the visual projection and the screen, using a screen and the TVs and having your mind to sort that to hold that information and where to put it and what's coming in. So that's quite interesting. I used to do things like that, like try to picture things and for math problems and that, like, okay, I remember doing this. What did I do on the piece of paper exactly for this type of problem? And picture that, what happened. So it was quite the memory jogger there. And that was the internal, that's another example of what we went through. External, what was coming up, from memories and the feel, some emotions, feelings, not too many emotions, but like the memories that pop up from external, what's external and what influences the internal. So that was wonderful. It was a lot of great information and conversations tonight. So I give it a 9.5.
All right. Thank you, Brent. And actually, I share my wrap up here really quick. A lot of what you just said, Brent. One of the things that I've been working on lately is recall, because I find myself doing the same thing, even with when we go through the wrap up process on the Blair Dunkley experience every Tuesday night. I find that I have my big takeaway, and then as we go through the wrap up, I hear someone else's, and I'm like, yeah, that. And then before I know it, I'm like, okay, what was my original takeaway? So it's interesting, that recall of the information going out. There's such great stuff. That's I'm just a little plug here, but that's part of the benefit of getting those insider notes that we talk about, because it has, the opportunity to go back and really go through and spark the memory of what we actually discussed and some things that we didn't discuss. Anyway, back to
And
really
here, two
practice.
other people have a 14 to 20-minute discussion on this topic from completely different angle.
Mhm.
And that's so cool. Especially this one was really good. I listened to this one twice.
Yep. And then the other big takeaway, we talk about the sliding scale between internal and external. And I actually, when we're talking about that sliding scale, I'm envisioning this teeter-totter, right? And this, you got internal, kind of like Blair showed, and the video, you have internal on one side, you have external on the other. I vision this teeter-totter where you have external, internal, and we're standing on top of this teeter-totter, kind of bridging that. And, it's like this balancing act between internal and external constantly. And then Shannon goes with her wrap up. Now I'm envisioning like all these other people on their teeter-totters, and how everybody, you got some teeters falling to the internal and some going external and some holding the balance, and we're all influencing and interacting. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, when you start, thinking about it like this, it does get very complex. And how awesome the mind models, to what Brent mentioned, you see the mind models weaving all throughout this as well, and how they all interlock. And anyway, I could go on and on and on and on, but it's just fascinating when you really start looking at how we influence each other, that external piece, and how we influence ourselves internally, and how what we can control is ourself and our teeter-totter. And anyway, it's fascinating stuff. Great discussion, and a 9.5 for me as well tonight. Becky, would you like to participate?
9.53. Not to be outdone by my husband. Just kidding. It is not a comparison. So
Yes, it is.
well, maybe. I mean, internal versus external, we could debate that one too. Anyhow, I really loved the discussion. Thank you everyone for participating. Patty, thank you for asking the questions and what was gleaned from the answers, as people got a little bit more curious about how does our internal and external world play. Sometimes I think that for me, I've looked like outside world is so big, this world is amazing and it's huge and it's got all these things. I forget just how much is on the inside too, because of how my perspective is filtering through. And Jacqueline, I love your sunglasses. Like, what sunglasses am I putting on when I open my eyes? Because and sometimes it starts even before then. And one of the things that came up for me as we were discussing it is this is the evaluation of what we're experiencing in the internal and external world is really a fantastic practice in awareness and notice. If we're slowing down enough to start to be like level 1 and 2, that's a different mind model, but awareness, notice practicing. We're going to hone that skill by giving ourselves opportunities to check in. And the more checked in we are, how much more effective are we on that sliding scale? Because again, we only have the locus of control with what we can do, but where are we in that? To Jacqueline's thing, like where are we? Where are we predominantly at? Where do we default to? Where is the slippery slope that we fall to? Is it internal, or do we peg ourselves on the external? Or are we looking to balance out the teeter-totter like Tim's talking about, surfing the waves of emotion and surfing the waves of life? Anywho.
And it's much easier to surf on that teeter-totter if you slow down.
If you're balanced.
If you're balanced. Patty, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Sure, thank you. For me, reflecting on the Shane's concept of pause, and then the memory distortions, how we're not as infallible as we'd like ourselves to believe, and to give that space for curiosity about what happened, how is someone else seeing this, what am I seeing, what can I do, the question progression, all of this, just the deeper dive on it. And I really appreciate, Blair, you're sharing the extra with your mom's light post story. People's participation tonight was all very effective, and I really am thankful for what you all add when you come. So, and Shane, please let Christy know we missed her, that we'd love to see her back.
Yep.
And did I give a number?
Nope.
I'm going to give it a 9.
Thank you, Patty.
Mm-hmm.
Blair, would you like to wrap the wrap?
Absolutely. Anyway, starting off 9.5, it was a great evening. I really loved everybody's contribution, which has inspired me. And thank you, Shannon, for getting the inspiration in the wrap-up part for me. Then Tim for jumping in and doing the teeter-totter thing. Uh, you know what I'm going to do? And Jacqueline for getting us started on this sort of tea thing. Well, I'm going to um, go with the thing that I wound up doing, which was a teeter-totter with a sliding scale that's going up and down as it's teeter-tottering on the vertical and going back and forth. Okay, on internal and external. So those, yeah, I know, Shane, like kapoom, it's like mind blown. But that's where I got to diving into the deep end on this stuff and playing with it. And when you start doing it and you've got this, by the way, you guys are going to notice the teeter-totter and the internal and external is part of a thing that I teach in coach training. And it's anybody got a name for what I taught there? Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
Is that the balance formula?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I remember.
Because there's actually another level to the whole teeter-totter thing as well. Plus, the fulcrum has got its own specific thing where you drop into that formula and go, oh, this gives you understanding. But understanding can actually give you knowing, which is an even deeper version of understanding. So, and that's where it topped out. But, going back and forth with the two layers of teeter-tottering on this vertical axis that can go this way, as well as the fulcrum having multiple angles on it. And that's where it finally maxed out in my brain when I looked at it all. And the balance formula became the ability to identify literally on the fly with the balance formula all of these things that were codependencies. Every one of the codependent things, like codependence for alcohol and drug abuse, codependence for like battered wives syndrome, and how can women stay, and how that codependence works. All of that was explained in everyone. When I read a whole bunch of these different codependency books, back in the day when codependency was a huge thing, it's not so much anymore, not all that, whatever. Um, but back in the day, it was a very big deal. It was newly sort of discovered. And every codependency book had its own theory. But the balance formula was a unified theory for all codependencies. At least that's what Dr. David Redekop said about when he reviewed my work that I did. And he said, I can't believe it. This answers all of the questions for every one of the codependency things I've ever seen. And I go, that's what this can do. It can answer these types of questions and see how this internal, external world is balanced out at all of these different levels. I didn't mean to blow it up into all of this stuff all of a sudden, but you guys were just already starting to see, oh, this stuff goes up and down. Oh, this stuff tilts back and forth. Well, yeah, but put another layer on top of that and then put a fulcrum on the bottom and you got the balance formula. So,
Well, it's a great like window into how much more there is in coach training. Like we discussed
oh yeah.
great things, but I like that you bring that up because it reminds me of the depth and the layers that there is to the information. Like it's good to be reminded of that.
And if you apply that just with basics like that we're going through here tonight, and we apply that with the balance formula, how prescriptive it is to and diagnostic it is to be able to literally see how people are thinking on the fly. Anyway, it's fantastic. It's really interesting. It's fun work. Anyway,
Did you give a number, Blair?
I did.
Okay.
9
And
and a half.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And with the it's interesting. You talk about the teeter-totter and stuff and the different levels. The mind models actually give, it's so much easier to be on that teeter-totter if we have a friend kind of hold their hand, it gives you that 80% effectiveness balance. That friend is the mind models. It really, when we get down to it, it really helps us balance out on there. So that's what was going through my head as you were talking.
Nice.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to my wife to take us out for tonight.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much for participating with us tonight. Again, just a reminder of the take-home practice. Notice what using external versus internal, the mind model is going to do for you this week. Again, you've got done listening to some amazing takeaways from the material that we chatted about tonight. As we were talking, we prepare a lot, and you probably heard this before. We prepare a lot, but we meet you where you're at in the room. So the things that come up, the things that we talk about, is meant to be an experience. Experiential learning is one of the most effective ways to make change and to actually integrate things into our world, to have true understanding. And so that's what we attempt to do here at the Blair Dunkley experience. So all those leftover goodies that we weren't able to get to tonight are housed in the Blair Dunkley's, the BDE Insider Notes. Blair's put together an opportunity for you to get access to all of the prep notes, the videos, the things that we started this off with. If you didn't catch the beginning, definitely recommend that you go back and watch that. From 318 all the way to current, and we're on 388. So there's a lot of great information in there. Highly recommend that you invest in yourself with the mind models. It's $25 a month or $300 a year. Fantastic investment to be able to learn how mind models can help you find nuances and things in your life that will help you become more effective. And as a reminder, Blair does currently have 2 books on Amazon, Ultimate Mind Hacking and Phobia Freedom Formula, with a 3rd work coming soon. So stay tuned. We'll give you more information on that. And with that, you guys, if you'd like to join us and be on live, be able to ask questions, participate, join us at rewiringthemind.com/weekly-webinar, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're here for you. Looking forward to having you with us. For those of you on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you comment and subscribe so you don't miss any additional broadcasts of the Blair Dunkley Experience, and we will catch you next week. With that, have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and we'll see you next week, guys. See ya.
Take care, everyone.